I don't think it's any an understatement to say things are very grim at the moment. Worldwide, the climate catastrophe, crazy high temperatures in Western Europe, just off the charts, breaking every record. I mentioned the Chinese heat wave before, how little traction that took, and things are looking really bad. We've had some pretty wild protests just to stop oil, vandalising some paintings. Didn't do any serious damage to Van Gogh, his sunflowers. And they've been going for luxury car dealerships, banks now, spraying sort of orange sort of muck all over the front doors. Doesn't hurt. But what are we going to do? I don't think it can be solved. I don't think there's any solution. Expressive Egg, I might have mentioned them before. The blogger there, the bloke, he said, well, it doesn't really matter whether humans are causing climate change or not. There's a few sort of climate deniers, people like C.J. Hopkins, a COVID skeptic. I'd say Dennis Rancourt in the anti-camp with COVID. Um, it said it doesn't really matter because it's just not sustainable. This petroleum-based global economy, the civilization that it's built on, is not sustainable. So either way, we're going to end up with something else, a new world order, Klaus, WEF, the global capitalist oligarchy. Irrespective of what Klaus and the WEF do, there's an oligarchy there. They have, I think, very different plans. Mass population reduction, possibly. It's going to happen anyway. Exponential growth will end in a big die-off. That's a basic fact of biology. You see it with bacteria. Once they hit the limit, then that's it. That's a big die-off. And we're subject to the same biological laws. So it's going to be very hideous. And the fascists are on the march everywhere. The Nazis are very excited about Ye, the artist formerly known as Kanye West. He's shooting off his mouth, and they're very excited about that. And it's all going to get a bit ugly, and things are not going to turn out very well. Well, who's going to stop the Nazis, say in the US, or a MAGA sort of revival, the militias and that? Not the Tumblr SJWs, not the trans activists, all these sort of weirdos. They're going to be lambs to the slaughter, I think. Very poorly positioned, I think. They're not going to stop it. And there's no real sort of international sort of left, sort of socialist organisation left to do it. There's no Soviet Union. That ended in 1991, and that's it. 30 years, nothing. It's just gone. There's no proper Western left, of course. Not Chapo, Trap House and garbage. Bernie Sanders. Poor old Bernie, he's pretty weak. He was a failure. Corbyn failed to stand up. Weak leaders. Corbyn, I think, is better than Sanders, but there's nothing there. There's nothing that's going to stop it. So we're going to have a climate sort of disaster, a slow grinding one, and then there's going to be an era, probably a prolonged era, probably maybe 10, 15, 20 years of fascism. Then there's Klaus and the New World Order. And the Chinese totalitarianism and digital IDs in China. It's just techno-fascism and digital IDs in India. Rishi Sunak's father got a lot of money from that. Apparently, I don't know much about him. I need to read up a bit more on him. Don't like the look of this guy. He's bad news, I think. Liz Truss, for old Liz Truss, is a bit dopey, but this guy, it's all heading downhill. They're gone over there. Their economy's trashed. That's just all bad. It's the whole system is going to collapse. Even if they do get their digital IDs, that won't last long because the climate's going to enact a hideous vengeance on us. So what happens after that? How do we build a new type of person if there's any people left? Could be a nuclear war. It's just sleepwalking towards that. They can't even. There's not even talk of negotiations. The weapons manufacturers have got to make their money. The Squad tried to put in a very mild letter, just calling for just a negotiation, peace negotiations, possibly to end the whole thing, the Ukraine thing. No, can't have it. Can't have it at all. They've just got to make their money. The great Satan. The corporations that manipulate the great Satan have to be fed. That's terrible. And they're going to wreck probably the whole human race. They're going to destroy everything. But if there are people after that, what sort of people are they going to be? I think we need to build a new type of man. I know a lot of people talk about this. There's a lot of people talk online about this sort of shit. But these men in the comment sections, and I got guilty of it myself a little bit, because I had a sort of a bit of a love thing with a certain person. And we've got to sort of control ourselves. We've got to build a new man. Maybe in that film clip where they turn their backs on the thoughts. Maybe that's what we've got to do. We've got to stop procreating. We've got to go anti-natalist, and the only way to do that is not to have any sort of relations with the women in that fashion, in the biblical sense. And we've got that's a Volcel population. That's how it's got to be. And that will lead to the end of the human race, but in a more passive fashion, a more peaceful type of end to the civilization. Al-Ma'ari and the great Syrian, about 1200 years ago he lived. Great philosopher. The mad jihadis decapitated the statue. They were so mad about it, he would have laughed at that. He would have thought those people are stupid. And Schopenhauer, the great man. We need more of those values. And we need blokes just to don't get married. They live. One of the signs, marry and reproduce the woman. He puts on the glasses and he sees the woman in a bikini lying on the beach. Marry and reproduce. When he put the glasses on. And so maybe John Carpenter is a little bit of an anti-natalist too. So that's got to be the new man. There's going to be no capitalism. There's going to be no sexual relations between men and women. And that's just got to stop. You just got to sort of keep it in your pants and leave it alone. That's the struggle. I've been struggling with my biology, and I've fought a war with it, and I'm winning slowly. I'm ahead. I'm not completely won. The battle is eternal. That woman, the Kutna woman, she talks about a pelvic sorcery, dancing around and all that sort of thing, and she's a big user of sort of pick-up sites, I found out. And, I don't really care either way, but she's making it into a joke and sort of denying it. she's sort of sleeping about, picking up blokes. So that's sort of her thing. So women like that, crazy woman, the Grace Power lady doing a pole dancing in her underwear, Riley in her little mini skirts and things, and we've got to fight against it. All these men in the comment sections, the posh lady, the dark-haired one, off Twitch, all these women. All these women have to be ignored, and it's got to stop. Carl Bayer was, he was right. It's just non-stop. Yeah, I can only decide between fascists. You can cheer on one group of fascists or another. He's going to give up politics. Smart guy, sort of Carl. Not a bad bloke. He's wrong on a couple of things, but that's how it is. He's fighting the LaRoucheites. Lyndon LaRouche. Nude conspiracies. Lyndon LaRouche was right. That was from The Simpsons. They had Bill Clinton in it. It's a funny episode of The Simpsons. Classic era Simpsons, that. So Carl was right, I think, as you just deciding between various groups of fascists. There's no left at all. It's all just the same thing. And Putin is just repeating sort of American culture war talking points, talking about transgenderism and all that sort of garbage. It's just the same thing. It's like a monoculture around the world. So politics, electoral politics is gone because Bernie and Corbyn, they won't let you have a slightly decent life. So it's just got to bring the whole system down and just sort of cop it. The Anglo-Saxon era has to come to an end. That's one thing that Putin's right about. You can't have this this globalist thing with the US, the UK as their lapdogs, just as a global power trying to decide every government in the world. It has to come to an end. The Anglo-Saxon era has to come to an end. The capitalistic growth era has to come to an end. The petroleum-based civilization has to come to an end, and civilizations come and go, don't they? So we have to try to build a new type of man that will lead to the dissolution of the human race. And that's going to be difficult because it's very difficult for certain people to control their urges. You're going against nature itself. You're waging a war against nature. And I know because I've waged the war myself. But there's no other way. We're not going to vote our way out of anything. Populist politics is not going to be any revolutions because they won't even let you have a mild sort of social democracy, social fascist. No mild improvements at all. They want to just crush you into the ground and kick you to death. They've shown their fangs, as Mark Ames would say, and we can't politic our way out of this. So this is going to be the end of this era, this civilization, the petroleum-based civilization. That's it. That's finished. And it's going to get ugly. And as quote Cormac McCarthy in Blood Meridian, the slaughter to come is probably beyond our imagining. And the climate crisis, droughts and wars, the great die-off that's about to happen, it's going to be very, very, very ugly. A lot of us aren't going to survive this. A lot of us are going to die. I mean, I don't think I'll survive it. But if I can put some new ideas, try to convince people to fight against their sexual urges and just not engage. You know, if you're a man, have sex with a man, or don't have sex at all. have sex with a doll. Probably not an animal because they can't really consent. But, or perhaps neuter yourself. I've been thinking of doing that myself. I would like to do that. That's going to be very difficult. I don't think it'll be a very pleasant experience to do that to myself because I wouldn't, they won't do it. I don't think it'll be done surgically. There's all sorts of wacky things with transgenderism and surgeries for doing all sorts of things to kids. So this is a civilization that has to end. Coronavirus sort of fanaticism and the vaccine mandates, this insanity, it can't be tolerated any longer. But I think nature itself will take care of things before they get too bad. Or maybe there's just nuclear war and we're gone anyway. But for the people afterwards, if we can convince people, leave some ideas around, engrave them on stone perhaps, and so they might be able to remove the human race naturally by simply not procreating and simply putting in an end to the species in a more natural fashion rather than violence and war, disaster, climate sort of disasters. It's going to be very difficult. People sort of don't want to do that, do they? They can't control themselves, but it can be done. I'm doing okay, and so you just got to try. We're going to try. We're going to build a new type of man, not a man that grovels over women in bikinis and miniskirts and lingerie, debase themselves all the time. We're going to create a new type of man, a little bit more dignified, with a bit more self-respect, better control over their urges. That will lead finally to the end of humanity. That will be the final phase, and it will be the best phase because there will be no more suffering. There will be no more suffering, and that can only be a good thing.